It's the 1970s. Disco is in, but the global economy is in chaos. The Bretton Woods system, which kept currencies stable since World War II, had collapsed. Money values were suddenly unpredictable. Then came the 1973 oil crisis. Overnight, gas prices quadrupled as OPEC cut shipments to countries supporting Israel. Factories slowed, gas lines stretched for miles, and politicians scrambled for solutions. In the midst of this turmoil, finance ministers from the US, West Germany, France, and the UK met quietly in the White House library. They called themselves the Library Group, an informal club to tackle problems too big for any one country. This was the seed of the G7, a place for the world's top industrialized democracies to talk openly, without rigid agendas or entourages. The idea was simple: get the leaders in a room for frank conversations about the world's biggest issues. It wasn't a formal institution but a crisis hotline for the planet's most powerful economies. The first meeting was about survival, how to stop the chaos from spiraling. That spirit of urgent, direct dialogue became the G7's DNA. Over time the group grew, but the core idea remained. When the world wobbles, the G7 talks, and sometimes that's enough to steady the ride. The original G6, formed in 1975, was the economic Avengers. The US led the pack, biggest GDP, global influence, and the dollar everyone trusted. West Germany, still divided, had rebuilt into an industrial powerhouse, famous for efficiency and exports. France hosted the first summit, bringing its unique mix of culture, politics, and a habit of challenging the status quo. The UK, with its financial clout and global connections, brought experience and expertise. Japan, the only non-Western member, was booming in electronics and cars after its own economic miracle. Italy rounded out the group, a major European economy with flair and complexity. Together, they represented the world's leading industrial democracies. Each brought something: vital economic muscle, political perspective, or global reach. The G6 was a snapshot of the world's economic powerhouses at that moment. And soon, the club would only get bigger. Why these countries? In the 1970s, the G7 members were the richest, most advanced democracies. Their economies made up over 2/3 of global GDP. They set the pace for the world. Membership was unwritten but clear. You had to be wealthy, industrialized, and democratic. These nations believed in free markets, individual liberty, and the rule of law, especially important during the Cold War. Their influence extended beyond economics. They shaped global institutions like the UN, World Bank, and IMF. When the G7 acted together, markets moved and policies shifted worldwide. It was an exclusive club, no autocrats allowed. Their shared values and economic clout were the G7's secret sauce. For decades, this made them the world's most powerful decision-makers, and when they agreed, the world listened. G7 summits aren't your average meetings. They're where world leaders tackle the planet's biggest headaches. Early on, it was all about the economy: stagflation, inflation, and unemployment. The 1985 Plaza Accord was a turning point. G7 leaders coordinated to devalue the US dollar, proving their collective power. As the Cold War ended, the agenda expanded: security, politics, and global transitions. In 1991, Gorbachev joined the London summit as the Soviet Union collapsed, a historic moment of East meeting West. Over time, new crises took center stage: climate change, terrorism, and global health. After 9/11s, the G7 focused on security and intelligence sharing. During the Ebola and COVID-19 outbreaks, they coordinated on health and economic recovery. The G7 became a crisis committee for everything from nuclear threats to gender equality. Each summit reflects the world's most urgent problems. Sometimes they move markets. Other times they set the tone for global action. The topics change, but the stakes stay high. When the G7 meets, the world pays attention. The G7's track record is a mix of big wins and missed opportunities. In 2008, their coordinated response to the financial crisis helped prevent a global depression. They've forgiven billions in debt for poor countries and created the Global Fund to fight AIDS, TB, and malaria. These actions saved lives and stabilized economies, but critics say the G7 often acts in its own interest, pushing policies that sometimes hurt developing nations. Their one-size-fits-all solutions haven't always worked, leading to accusations of self-interest. On climate change, the G7 talked a lot but often failed to deliver real action. The group's power is huge, but its political will has sometimes lagged behind. The G7 can be a force for good, or just a talking shop. Its legacy is still being written. G7 summits aren't always polite affairs. Sometimes they're pure drama. Trade disputes are a classic flashpoint, with the US often clashing with Europe and Japan. The 1982 Versailles summit was famously tense. Reagan and Mitterrand couldn't agree on economic policy, and the mood was icy. Fast forward to the Trump era, the 2018 summit in Canada saw Trump arrive late, leave early, and publicly clash with other leaders. He withdrew US support for the final statement and called Trudeau very dishonest and weak. A diplomatic bombshell. These moments show the real personalities behind the politics. But there's humor too, like the viral photo of Merkel and Trump locked in a standoff, surrounded by exasperated leaders. G7 summits are a mix of high-stakes diplomacy and very human moments. Leaders joke, argue, and sometimes storm out. It's a reminder, even at the top, it's still people trying to get along. The drama can derail talks, or break the ice for real progress. Either way, the world is watching. And sometimes the memes are as memorable as the policies. The G7 has evolved since its 1970s beginnings. Canada joined in 1976, making it the G7. In 1997, Russia was added, creating the G8, until its 2014 expulsion over Crimea. That move showed the G7's core values still matter. Break the rules and you're out. But is the G7 still relevant? Today, emerging economies like China, India, and Brazil are global heavyweights. China's economy is now bigger than several G7 members combined. The G20, which includes these rising powers, has become the main stage for global economic talks. Still, the G7 remains a crucial forum for the world's leading democracies. It's where allies align strategies before facing the wider, more diverse G20. In a fractured world, a core group of like-minded powers is more important than ever. The G7 may be smaller, but its influence endures. It's still where the West comes together to plan its next move. The world has changed, but the G7's mission, to steady the global ship, remains. Its story isn't over yet.